introduced by Dr. Nana Saleh, my co-facilitator in this session. But before we start with the introduction of the speaker, let me remind you again that that in this session only dedicated to the discussion and also question and answer, because we believe that all of you already watched the video, the talk of all of the speaker, and then this session we only use just for discussion. And another thing, organization committee already received a number of questions that have been posted to the forum. So me and Dr. Nana will pick up some of the questions to be addressed by the speaker, maybe one or two questions. If you had more time, and then we will have prize more questions with the with the another question that we got from the box. It is also possible to post question or comment in the Q&A box, in addition to the question that you already have in the box forum. So there are two ways. So we will ask question from that we got from the forum, and another possibility also that the audience or participant can also post question or comment in the Q&A box. Okay, please, Dr. Nana Saleh, to introduce our speaker in this session 4. So your time is yours, Dr. Nana, please.
Thank you. Can we get the screen on? Okay, thank you, Pak Mahatma. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Nana Saleh, and I will be co-facilitating this session. And allow me to introduce our speakers in this session of the workshop. Can we have the screen, please? Okay. So okay, just quickly, I think most of you have seen all of the recorded video. Can we go next, please? And this is the last session of our workshop for today. Next. Okay, let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Van Sang Domeze. He is the Senior Advisor at the United Nations Global Compact on Oceans and Director of the Food Program for the Lloyd Register Foundation. And he is also the leader of the Seaweed Manifesto, partnering with UNFIO and the World Bank and WWF, universities and NGOs and large brands in a call to scale up the seaweed industry in order to address some of the world's most important challenges. And he is co-leading the first international platform for seaweed stakeholders, the Safe Seaweed Coalition, on the expert panel to define the European Commission allocation strategy and support preparation of the UN Food System Summit. And I received a request from the organizer. We know that Dr. Vincent has to go, so I might stop here and continue later. Pak Mahatma, can we ask him his questions? Dr. Vincent, because he just have very short time. So I will continue to introduce the rest of the speakers, but maybe we can begin with Dr. Vincent. Sorry, I keep saying Vincent or Fanzang. This is very French. Vincent, yes. Dr. Mahatma, do you want to lead the question for Dr. Vincent?
Okay, sure.
I'll see you later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nana. Dr. Vincent, you are the one that need to answer the question because you have limited time in this session. So. Okay, HR, you clearly love all the thin seaweed. What attracts you to help this cause of seaweed and their benefit for the world?
Well, there are many, as we have mentioned. And first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for accommodating this timing. It's a lot of uncertainties. I'd like to mention that we are this coalition. We are co-leading that with Philippe Potin, who is attending also today and who is part of the speakers. So. He will be more than able and even much better than me to answer any question you may have regarding this initiative or more general. But no, what I would like to state here is from a UN perspective, because at the first time, I think the UN are moving into a real program and are building a momentum around seaweed because seaweed indeed ticks a lot of boxes when it comes to addressing some of the most pressing SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goal. So food and security, of course, SDG 2, there's a critical potential as direct food for human or as indirect food supporting agriculture, like feeding animal and being a biostimulant for plants and protecting them. So there's a great potential for seaweed to support that. And we have to scale it up, and there's a great work to do in terms of pushing this forward and training and educating people to eat more seaweed or to use seaweed in their supply chain, in their farming practices. There's a great work of education, and I think that's why we need to get together through that coalition, which is the first ever global coalition. You can all register there. That's for free. I will share the link right after my talk, but you can all go to the coalition, become a member. It's important, and then you become part of the coalition. And then the coalition has been funded by the Lloyd's Register Foundation, for £4 million. So 80% of this will be dedicated to support projects. We will issue the proposal very soon, and the UN is fully part of it because, as mentioned, it can support SDG 2, reduce hunger. Can also support the SDG 5, which is the gender equity. We see that there's a growing potential for seaweed to give revenues to poor people in coastal community and also to women. We see a lot of people involved in the seaweed business are women for many reasons. I was at another panel yesterday afternoon, and I was the only man with 8 women next to me. So that was very positive. I think there's a great potential here. There's even more potential in terms of carbon sequestration. That's something that we are working heavily on at the moment with UN Global Compact, preparing the COP26 very soon. And there's a potential there that seaweed can mitigate climate change, either by displacing some products that are emitting a lot of greenhouse gas at the moment, like plastics, like fertilizers, and so forth, or improving digestion of the livestock. We've seen some possibilities that are still to be fully confirmed from a scientific point of view, but that seaweed may have a potential to cut methane emission, which is one of the largest contributors in the world to greenhouse gas emission. So, and last but certainly not least, there's a potential for seaweed to sequester carbon down in the ocean, shedding cells when it grows. Seaweed can represent a very interesting carbon sink and the only nature-based solution to actively take carbon back from the atmosphere to the ocean sediment where it used to be for millennia. So there's a very important point here. There's a very important point about creating, I would say, a regenerative aquaculture, and that's important as well. Life underwater, SDG 14. We have to restore abundance in the ocean. We have to clean the ocean. We have to create ecosystem at sea and develop aquaculture, not only seaweed, but feed the world with a global aquaculture. We are positioning this very high in the UN Food System Summit that is taking place in Rome this summer and then in New York at fall. It's a very important meeting and summit because it's the first of its kind, but certainly not the least. And Blue Food has a slot and is seen as a game-changing solution to feed the world of tomorrow. And seaweed is fully part of the blue food solution because that's the lowest trophic level there. So that's absolutely critical. So there's a lot of benefit, and we can mention medicines, bioplastics, pollution, mitigating pollution. So seaweed may well be the greatest untapped resource. I'm here to voice that the UN has identified this as a game-changing solution to meet some of the generational challenges of our world, and that we have to scale it up. We have to put the right regulation, the right standards. We have to make sure it works. We have to educate people, and we have to train smallholders to become seaweed farmers. So there's a long way to go, but we will need to be all together and work together to get the funding to maximize benefit from research, from investment, to avoid overlaps and to make sure that we all work in collaboration. The Safe Seaweed Coalition is the new home for all of those who want to work all together in the seaweed industry and really make a difference.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. Before I come back to Dr. Nana, there is another question. If you still have time to answer
Yeah,
or
go
to
ahead, no
respond.
problem.
Okay, one more question. This is important because it is about money. So you are seen as the man with the money. Please just outline how the funds available are to be administrated.
Okay, well, that's a good question. The foundation, as the Lloyd's Register Foundation, which is a British charity, has granted £4 million to the CNRS. And once again, my very esteemed colleague Philippe Potin here is leading this initiative. We will have a call for proposal that will be issued at the end of this month, on the 26th of July. The first one. So I think we will have a relatively small project. We select small budget in order to bring the family together, I would say, in order to create because if we fund only one big project, then that will not have a strong convening power. And to start with, even though we already have 400 members in this coalition, we want to make sure that everyone is coming together. I shared the link, by the way, in the chat box about the coalition to join us. So you feel free to become a member and to display your solution, what you're doing in what we call the greenhouse, the Ubuntu platform, where you can tell, okay, I'm producing this, I'm processing this, I'm doing this, and then you can become a part of the ecosystem and visible to investors, visible to the coalition, visible to other stakeholders. So back on the topic of the funding and the money, we will release the first contract at the end of this year. There will be 3 years at least. So every year we will launch call for proposal. Then with the steering committee, which is gathering FAO, WWF, the government of America, of Australia, representatives from Japan, from EU, and so forth, we will select and award the funding, and then we sign the contract. So there will be a call for proposal, official call for proposal for that. But yeah, I mean that's the process that we have. So end of July, official communication through the coalition that the call proposal are launched. 2 months for people to reply, and then yeah, we'll see what then there will be another one next year. And in the meantime, we will organize discussion. We have organized discussion. We have organized roundtable discussion as part of the coalition. So we have gathered a group of 15 people across our members to discuss some topical issue like biopackaging, seaweed in Africa, residues, nutritional standards, and so forth. And this is steering also the different calls that we will issue. So that's how it works actually.
Okay, thank you very much, Vincent, for the talk. Very interesting talk. Yeah, we hope that we have a nice time, and we hope that from this workshop we can build a global seaweed community later on. Hopefully. Thank you again,
yeah.
Vincent. Yeah. So please, Dr. Nana. Yeah, please, Dr. Nana, continue to introduce our rest of the speaker this session.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mahatma. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay.
I do.
So there are 11 panelists, 11 speakers for this session, for our session. I would like to introduce Dr. Kasmiati. She is the head of Center of Excellence for Development and Utilization of Seaweed, and her background is food science and technology, with special interest in developing health-related and consumer products. Dr. Nick Paul from Australia, joining us from Australia. He's a marine scientist at the University of Sunshine Coast and led a project funded by Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research. And Nick plays role combining research expertise with a strong focus on industry partnerships, innovation, and IP development and commercialization. Our next other speakers from Philippines, Mr. JP Faisan. He's an associate researcher and commodity team leader for seaweed and for seaweed at CFGE CIQD, and he is an early career researcher for the Global Seaweed Star program, safeguarding the seaweed aquaculture industry of the developing countries. And he focused on disease and pest detection in eucalyptus seaweed farms in the Philippines. Dr. Cecilia Kembi, she's joining us from University of Malaya, Malaysia. And she's also a researcher in Global Seaweed Start, focusing on biosecurity and policy for seaweed aquaculture industry, in particular of the eucalyptus. Dr. G. Grace Suya, she's also a researcher at the Global Seaweed Star project funded by the UK, and she focus on seaweed value chain, emphasize on governance, social network risk, and risk management and gender. Dr. Yanish, once again, he is a Canadian, lives in Bali, and Phyconomy vocation with commercial seaweed. He has been working on seaweed since 1965, experience all over the world, but he has since then he lives in Indonesia with his Seaweed 6 Energy company. And the next one is Mr. Nelson Padaseri, who worked with Dr. Nish, and he's a co-founder and director of energy. And he's passionate about applying the tools of modern agriculture and biotechnology into seaweed farming, and he leads a multidisciplinary team working on high throughput biomass production from the oceans and developing seaweed cultivation systems in India and Indonesia. Professor Philippe Potin, he is a senior scientist at CNRS in France, and also a team leader of oligosaccharide signaling and defense mechanism at the Station Biology de Roscoff. And he is the scientific coordinator of IDEAL, one of our sponsors for today. Thank you. And of the EU Horizon 2020 SC Blue Growth Innovation Action GENIAL. He is also a scientific leader of the Safe Seaweed Coalition, a global alliance to establish a seaweed industry that provides safe products, safe working conditions, and environmental protection. The Professor Elizabeth Couture-Cook, she is the head of United Nations University and also Scottish Association for Marine Science Associate Institute. She is currently leading a £6 million research program under Global Seaweed Star, and she is a steering committee of Lloyd Register Foundation, funded a Safe Coalition, a Safe Seaweed Coalition, and several other international working groups. Professor Jena Angadireja, he couldn't be with us today because he's being he suffered from COVID, so hopefully he can wish him speedy recovery. But I think we can keep the questions for him, and interact for those who ask questions for Prof. Jana can be posted in the forum later on. Thank you. I think I ended up there. Pak Mahatma, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nana. So before we move to Dr. Kasmiati, let me remind you again that we have time for this session about 1.5 hours. So we have to manage the time wisely. So we allocate for each speaker to respond to the question and to add some more comment about 7 minutes to 8 minutes, no more than 8 minutes. So please keep the time tightly so that we can manage this session, that we can answer all of the questions and we can address all of the issues that come with this in this session. Okay, Dr. Kasmiati, are you there? Dr. Kasmiati?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, Pak Mahatma, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Kasmiati, many of us interested about what the CEDUS UNHAS has doing, the Center of Excellence of Seaweed in UNHAS. So, another question that we want to know is every country should be working toward a strength repository of all the seaweed it grows, so that genetic diversity is not lost. In such venture, is such a venture being planned by CEDUS and related program?
Okay. Thank you, Pak Mahatma and Ibu Nana as facilitator for this session 4. Allow me to greet other speakers. So good afternoon for speakers come from the same zone as Indonesia, and good morning for others from different zones. So okay, the question is actually very interesting question. So here I would like to give some comment on that question. Okay, so the issue of preserve of the genetic diversity of seaweed is important and also interesting, but however, for me, the topic is too big to be conducted by only one organization alone. So here in our organization, we put the program, we plan that program as a long-term goal. So now we are working on the more urgent issues that need to be solved soon as the first priority. For example, we work on post-harvest handling and also how to increase the value added of seaweed product. But for this issue of genetic diversity program, we are keen to collaborate with any interesting party, and also beside collaborating between scientists, also government and private sector should participate as supporting agencies to provide financial support for the work. So once again, we are open to have collaboration on the preserving of genetic diversity of seaweed all over the world. So if you have any idea on that issue, please contact us through the email or website. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kasmiati. There is another question that needs to be responded. Please outline lesson to be learned by the other countries with the needs for Center of Excellence. What can you recommend or advise as ways this center becomes sustainable and ensure longevity beyond the initial phase of funding? Go ahead, Dr. Kasmiati.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Here, I would like to explain the Center of Excellence of the development and utilization of seaweed in Hasanuddin University. So the Center of the Excellence was established in 2011, some years after seaweed cultivation was initiated in South Sulawesi water. And in our experiences for the first 5-year period, the activities of the Center of Excellence were supported by Indonesian government through the Ministry of Higher Education and also supported by Hasanuddin University. And by then, the center became a well-established organization, and the center has to find its own funding through collaboration at both national and international scales. So coming to this year, we are working on at least 3 collaborative projects funded by Indonesian company and also an NGO from the Netherlands. One of the collaborative project is on the cultivation of porphyra. Porphyra is the red seaweed that with the high protein content, that the seaweed is promising as a source of food for the future. And another project concern about impact assessment for a large scale of seaweed cultivation implemented in South Sulawesi, including environment, socio-economic, and gender aspects. And also the third project is working on working with the Indonesian government, the topic is to increase the value added of product based on seaweed. Here, I would like to say that it is an important way to always look for opportunities and also be ready to work with a large range of partners at different aspects of seaweed research and development aspect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kasmiati. We will back again to you when we have time left. Yeah. Okay. So let's move to another speaker. Professor Nick Paul, are you there? Professor Nick Paul.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Prof Nick, yeah. I know you are the one who working a lot in Indonesia and you have many partners, yeah. I saw from your talk and your presentation and your video. So I think this question is very challenging question from Alan, Mr. Alan. Yeah, about the creative, innovative product. So the question is, if you had a crystal ball, where will you see the industry being in 10 years time? And what sort of product being produced and where? Is it clear, Paul? Yeah.
It is, though. Thank you very much, Fatma. It's nice to be here and yeah, also to represent all of my Indonesian seaweed colleagues, of course, in today's session. So the crystal ball, Dr. Allen, he likes to ask lots of questions. So maybe the crystal ball could be made of a wonderful sort of iota carrageenan, and we could be gazing through that lens. And I think the main thing with innovation in terms of what I've seen from the Indonesian perspective, not the Australian perspective now, just the Indonesian one, is that wonderful entrepreneurial spirit that's happening at the smallholder farmer sort of level. And most importantly is happening through women's innovation in all sorts of wonderful food and other types of products. So I've never seen such a diverse array of seaweed ingredients being incorporated into every possible savory, sweet, gula type of products that you can imagine. And so that's what I really feel is the great thing about the seaweed production system in Indonesia, is that it is focused on the community benefits. As soon as we start to talk about industrializing that, there's going to be big social and economic challenges that we need to actually deal with. So I'm concerned by that. That's my crystal ball gazing.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Yeah, I forgot to tell that the title of the talk of the Prof Paul is Innovation and Impact of Seaweed Production and Processing in Indonesia. So one more question before I move to another speaker, Prof Paul. Can the global market keep taking more and more product?
I know that many of the colleagues on today's Zoom always think about that. What's next? What's going to push the industry into the next sort of level when it comes to actually the pull factors? So we often talk, if you're on the aquaculture side, about the push factors, the production side, but if there's no market, then that's going to become a really big issue. And most of my work is really focused on how do we link into the rest of the global food systems. So it's going to be challenging to get people, and we've done a lot of studies on this from a consumer marketing point of view, to start eating seaweed if it's not culturally relevant. Obviously that's different in Asia, but certainly amongst all other areas. So one of the things that we really need to do is, and Vincent and others have touched on this as well, is start to think about how do we boost agricultural production, existing agricultural production and existing fish and seafood production by linking in seaweed. And really that's the key. We're not talking about replacing protein. We're not talking about, so for feed ingredients, I mean, we're not talking about being the primary nitrogen source for agriculture. What we are talking about is very specific parts of those production cycles. So can we add a very small amount of a a seaweed additive into the diet of a fish at a particular stage in the production cycle so that it's most highly valued so that it can have a big impact. So not trying to be a like-for-like replacement. Can we add agricultural stimulants on a particular crop at a particular stage of a seedling? That's the type of nuance that we need to be looking at, and that's where all of our scientific colleagues should be focusing on those niche high-value products and applications, because that's going to drive the innovation. But we need the research.
Thank you, Professor Paul. Actually, I have one more question in my hand, but let me move to another speaker because of the limited of time. Okay, okay. Thank you, Professor Paul. I will come back to you when we have time. Okay, I move to Mr. Faisan, GV Faisan. Are you there?
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Faisan. Mr. Faisan, yeah. You are working with Dr. Anisha, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. And you working about disease and pests in aquatic seaweed. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There is two questions for you to respond. One of them is, have you ever identified what are those black spot, not white spot, but black spot on the ecomatoid thallus? Have you seen similar observation in Capapicus? So please. Mr. Faisan.
Yes. Good afternoon, and thank you for that question. Unfortunately, at the moment, we haven't yet identified what those black spots on the thallus of seaweeds are, but we have samples for further analysis. It would be interesting to know the etiology of the black spots and determine whether this abnormality could be a potential problem in the future. Interestingly, we observed those black spots in only one seaweed farms and absent in other seaweed farming areas that we visited. Other than Eucheuma denticulatum,
Are we frozen? Maybe
he's frozen. Yeah, it seems you have. He has internet connection problem. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Faisan, are you there again? Can you hear my voice? So maybe we skip Mr. Faisan for a while, and then we will back to him again. So we will move to another speaker, Dr. Cecilia Kambay from Malaysia.
Sorry, I lost my connection. Yes, sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Please go ahead. Continue.
Oh,
comment, yeah.
I don't know where I left, but other than Eucheuma denticulatum, we have not observed these black spots on other eucheumatoid seaweed species, including Capapicus alversi and Capapicus striatus.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paisan, about you had clarified about the black spot, yeah. So we haven't found it yet in Capapicus yet, yeah. But it is potential problem in the future, yeah.
Yes, it's really nice to have these further studies on the potential effect of this abnormality to the seaweed industry.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's important information to us, yeah. Okay, another question, Mr. Paisan. What mitigation strategy would you recommend to farmers affected by this disease? What the R&D, research and development intervention, need to be brought into the predictable seaweed farming?
Okay, yes, mitigating strategies to minimize the impact of disease in seaweed farms is important. Here in the Philippines and many other countries, fixed off-bottom method of culturing seaweeds remain the most widely used farming technique. However, fluctuations in environmental parameters are quite high in the intertidal area or zone, which makes seaweeds prone to stress, thereby making the seaweeds more susceptible to disease occurrence. One of the suggestion mentioned yesterday's session was to move the farm to deeper water areas where fluctuation in environmental parameters are moderate. Also, there are already published papers on the use of seaweed extract, previously mentioned also in the earlier session, as a phycobiostimulant to mitigate disease and pest infestation. The success of seaweed cultivations remain dependent on the prevailing weather conditions, and any changes in environmental parameters could directly or indirectly affect the farm seaweeds. So it's quite difficult to have a predictable seaweed farming at the moment, I would say. R&D interventions and strategies such as identification and or development of new seaweed cultivars and strains that are disease or pest resistant. Also, identification of new cultivars that can tolerate changes in environmental parameters brought about by changing weather patterns and climate change will definitely benefit the seaweed industry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Faisal, about the information. So it is interesting to know. Yeah, this is the lesson learned from Philippines. Yeah. Okay, we will back to again. Yeah. Okay, now from
Thank
Philippines
you.
we move. Yeah, you're welcome. So from Philippines we move to Malaysia. Dr. Cecilia Kembe, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So you did very interesting study about biosecurity aspect of crop care and farm management of the aquatic seaweed farming. Yeah. Okay, there is two questions that need to be responded and to need to be comment yeah further. Yeah. One of them is your results indicated that diligent cleaning, cooling, selection, etc., can result in reduce incident of ice syndrome and cleaner crops, hence biosecurity. But what is the return for unit effort? Yeah, the return per unit effort. How does this translate to increased farm profitability, which is probably the goal of most farm enterprises?
Okay, I got the question. So the first for the return per unit effort, we conduct our experiment in the disease season. We call the disease season because that the low water movement around and also the environment parameter in here is not suitable for farming seaweed. That the increased temperature and also the high nutrient in an environment and also that trigger the epiphyte bloom in that area. So that's why our field experiment is a quite expensive experiment. So the return per unit effort that we get based on our study is required about 2.6 in the biosecurity treatment compared with the non-biosecurity treatment with the cleaning treatment that we made. So about the profitability, I think it's depend on the where we conduct the biosecurity. If they apply in the small scale farmer, individual farmer, this the farm just less than 2 hectare. I think that for the labor cost can be reduced because the farmer mostly going to their farm every single day, and then they can conduct the cleaning by themselves. So if the biosecurity for the cleaning treatment conduct in the like large scale or farmer or the more than 2 hectare or farm, it will be costly for the labor cost. But I have to underline here that we conduct in a disease season. So if the farm conduct in the good environment system, I think the labor costs can be decreased because we just conduct maybe it's not every 2 days, but maybe it's less than once per week. So it's once per week or the twice per week. So it reduce the cost for the labor cost. So, but if we consistently produce more high quality or the healthy seedling, if in the good season or the bad season or disease season, I think the labor cost can be compromised. I think that's it. My answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cecilia. Yeah, there is one more question. How do you propose we educate farmers that biosecurity measure actually help them into the long run?
Okay, we have to underline here that the biosecurity is a long investment approach. It's not just taking in the immediately have the profit or have the result. So in terms of the how we propose to the farmer to do the such of the biosecurity that we said, I think through the training, even the informal training for the farmer, we know that the farmer is quite doesn't want to show. I think the informal training such as like focus discussion group or any other the community-based discussion can help them to get knowledge about how to do the biosecurity in their farm. Also, we recommend for the government officer that who assist a farmer in their farm. They also can get the access for the biosecurity training because they can assist a farmer with the quick response when there has a problem in the farmer. We also plan to propose our biosecurity practice in using social media such as YouTube or the Facebook to get informed to other stakeholder that maybe it can be reached to the farmer that doesn't have any access to get trained, because when we survey in Malaysia, all the farmer has a mobile phone. So I think with the social media, it can educate them. I think that is my answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cecilia. It is interesting to know. It is good also lesson learned that we know that maybe can be adopted to be implemented to another site, yeah, or to another country. Okay, we will back to again Dr. Cecilia. Let's to move to another speaker, and then from Malaysia we come back to Philippines again. Yeah, Mr. G. Grace Suyo, are you there? Mr. G. Grace Suyo. Do you hear my voice? Miss G, sorry, Grace. Hello, Grace. Dr. Nana, do you hear Grace's voice?
Dr. Grace, can you unmute, please? Or can the organizer?
Hi, sorry, can
Yes.
you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
have problems with my. Hi.
Okay, Grace. Yeah. Thank you. So you are part of the Global Sewage Star project, yeah?
Yes.
So you talk about keeping afloat stakeholders' insight into sustainability challenges and solution in the Philippine sewage industry. So there are two questions that we need to know from your answer or for your information. The first one is, in your study, what did you feel were the key intervention needed to help boost the seaweed farming sector in the Philippines?
Well, that is really a very interesting question. So the Philippine sewage industry is currently controlled by market forces, and I think it has also been mentioned by Dr. Ian Nish earlier, if I'm correct. Because even though there are existing policies, implementation and compliance are still weak relative to market forces. And when I say market forces, I'm referring to the law of demand and supply. So in order to strengthen the seaweed industry, there is a need for greater government intervention. So these interventions should actually be geared towards addressing the root causes of the problem, which when we analyze it from a value chain perspective, these issues are actually pooled in the production segment. And this include lack of seed stocks or cultivars, disease and pest infestations, and other environmental issues like typhoons. And in addition to these issues, we are also facing social and economic constraints like lack of access to resources and low compliance to quality standards. So the reason why I am highlighting the role of the government is because it has the executive and legislative powers, and this could be exercised to initiate or strengthen existing strategies pertinent to, for example, quality control and improved access to resources for farmers. And this also entails provision of insurance, credit facilities, which I suggest should always be coupled by technical support or capacity building activities. Um, the government could also increase its control over prices through implementation of price control mechanisms. And one thing that I really would like to highlight is increased opportunities for collaboration between farmers, the government, non-government organizations, the academia, and the private sector. So in the context of social networks, which is basically the relationships between the different stakeholder groups, we can see that the farmers remain at the tail end of the industry because they primarily lack access to resources and services, which can actually be offered by organizations outside of the production sector. So if we want the farming and industry to move forward, we have to make sure that the farmers are able to maximize their access to different forms of support. But take note, but not to the point of making them reliant to external actors, but simply to empower them so that eventually they will be able to manage their livelihoods on their own. And we also need to remember that different organizations have different roles in the seaweed industry. So let me take the Tropical Phyconomy Coalition as an example. So this coalition serves as a platform for scientists, for researchers, for practitioners and entrepreneurs to share their insights about the seaweed industry. But the potential role, potential influence of the coalition actually goes beyond the scientific field because the coalition can help bridge knowledge and governance gaps in the industry by ensuring that any research output or any initiatives are translated into action. First off, by the government, being the executive and legislative body of every country, and secondly, by key stakeholder groups in the supply chain. So I'm referring to the farmers, the traders, and then the processors. So there's really no definite path by which this can happen, but the research and development sector and the academia can actually serve as drivers for change. And this is through the provision of scientific evidence and serving as a link to funding sources. We have heard those presentations earlier. And yeah, that's from my end.
Okay, thank you, Grace, for the answer and the information. So we will back to you again when we have time. Okay, I will move to another speaker. Thank you, Grace.
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I move to Dr. Ian Nays. Are you there, Ian?
I am indeed.
Okay, Ian, yeah. I know very well that you are very familiar with Indonesian seaweed farmer, yeah, because you work quite long time in Indonesia. So as you know that Indonesian seaweed farmers still practice phyconomy, adaptive phyconomy instead of precision phyconomy, yeah. So the question is, this is a challenging question. Actually, I make this question for you, special for you, because there is no question come from the forum. So I make last night this question to you. So the question is, how is the main challenge faced by the farmer when they are going to integrate the precision technology into their adaptive phyconomy system for extensive tropical seaweed farming like in Indonesia? Is that clear? Yeah.
Well, and I'm speaking for myself and Nelson Vadasari, who's also on this panel. The difficult part is convincing the farmers that precision techniques are good for their business. And that means spending a lot of time, a lot of effort doing extension work and demonstrating by practical application that precision phyconomy does enhance their ability to make a profit with their farming operation. I think reference was made previously to tissue culture, be it sort of petering out after 2 or 3 growth cycles. You know, that's the kind of thing that makes farmers a little bit skeptical about precision phyconomy. So we have to be careful how we integrate precision techniques into adaptive systems.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Yeah, there's one more question. This question come from Dr. Nana. You had been living in Bali for a long time. Do you see any missed opportunity in seaweed business?
In Indonesia?
Yeah, in Indonesia.
I see huge opportunities being missed. And I can't even express how big the opportunities are. Beginning with everything east of Timor, Maluku, Papua, all of that, almost untouched. Moving into genera other than the Cumatoids and Gracilaria. Okay, there's a little bit in Caulerpa and that, but Alamenia, there are so many opportunities in Indonesia, I can't even begin to say how big they are. And it applies to the whole coral triangle.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Okay, we will back to you again later, yeah. So we move to next speaker, yeah. Nelson Padasiri. Are you there, Nelson?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So you work actually similar work with Ian, yeah, about the integration of precision technology into adaptive economy system, yeah, for extensive tropical rich sea farming. Is that right, yeah?
Yeah, we work together. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. One question that arises is, it is very interesting that your goal is similar to those of the Loretta Robertson. This is the first session, yeah. And the question is, do you see any collaboration or cross pollination of idea and efforts? And you will reduce the unit cost of the production so that the value of biomass is interesting for energy production. You mentioned it in your talk, but please outline to the audience the impact of this might have on livelihood of farmer and what are you doing to address this? Please, Nelson, Mr. Nelson, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for the question. And I think I think there's 2 parts of the question. First is about similar work being worked on in different parts of the world. And really it is because of the whole TPCD initiative that many of us even come to know a lot more about what everyone else is doing. So I really think there's a huge scope of collaboration, especially when it comes to things about the basic biology and agronomy of the plant. I mean, there's so much to be learned there. If you compare how Kappa ficus or Eucuma is versus say a rice or a wheat, we're ages behind that. And we're really trying to use the tools of modern technology to catch up. And rather than all of us working in our silos, I really hope we can, through this initiative, even combine our energies together so we can really bring about, a revolution in seaweed agronomy, right from developing better strains. Then there's been talk about developing hybrid strains, and a whole bunch. I mean, all the speakers before me have done such really work. It's great to be here. And definitely there is scope for collaboration, not with many of the groups in this conference. And coming to the second point, really what we're all about at C6. Our motto is disruptive solutions for a sustainable planet, where what we are saying, hey, when we are growing seaweeds, we're not just looking at the current hydrocolloid market, what exists. We want seaweeds to be a part of everyone's lives. So in order to increase utilization of seaweeds, increase the production of seaweeds, we need a lot more uses coming in. And we hear about these uses like, there's bioplastics, there's biofuels, animal feed. I mean, it's all in the background, but for it to really come into the picture, for something like bioplastics to be used by everyone and not just, say, a fancy wrapper on a perfume bottle, for that to happen, we need the price of seaweed to come at a level where these products can be afforded by the general public. I mean, you want every single person to be able to replace, say, a plastic bag with something made out of seaweeds. But to do that, the cost of production has to go down. And for the cost of production to go down, it's not just about arbitrarily reducing the cost, the price of seaweeds. We have to bring about innovation so that for every farmer, it is profitable to grow these seaweeds and still sell it at a reasonable price. The only way this is possible is by bringing in technology. And this has happened in agriculture over and over again. But I think the challenge is, and I think Dr. Phyconomy Lim had talked about it, how to bring about such technology so that it is affordable to the farmer as well. And I really think there's a huge scope for that, because even in agriculture today, if you see, say, how corn or wheat is farmed, it's really different how it's done in, say, Canada, where people have square kilometers of farms, and a place like India, where even Indonesia, where a few acres is quite a lot. So I think technologies adapt for different farmers, and it's really how do we disseminate these technologies, what business models we use, which will allow for everyone to have a piece of this seaweed revolution.
Okay, thank you, Nelson. Ayan, if you are welcome to add if you want to add, because you do similar work with Nelson.
Actually, we don't do similar work. We work together every day. We're like joined at we're doing the same work.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay,
so,
thank you, Ayan.
What Nelson says reflects both of us.
Okay, thank you, Ayan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now we move to another speaker, Professor Philip Fotin. Yeah, are you there, Professor Philip?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So this is about talking about opportunity with the Safe Seaweed Coalition. Yeah. Before we raise the question, we would like to thank you for the sponsor of this event. So we cannot make this event possible without your support. So thank you very much for this support, Professor Philip. Yeah. So now I come to the question. What would you like to see as major outcome from this meeting of the minds and the incredible sharing of information?
So thank you for offering me the opportunity to talk during this workshop. And of course, I really thank you for organizing the whole set of sessions, which were very, very interesting and very stimulating, and which already provided me some answer to your questions, because the main purpose, and I said that in the introduction of my video, is that I really want to push the ideas we developed nearly 20 years ago with Dr. Alan Critchley, but also with Alicia Hurtado and many other colleagues who were involved in the discussion at that moment. And on some of the ideas we implemented at that time in Chile, but we were also willing to implement in Southeast Asia, in Philippines and Indonesia. And so at that time, it was not possible to concretize all the ideas and due to some difficulties which will be too long to describe here. But during the last 2 decades, I never had to get in mind all the ideas we share. Also, it was, of course, very closely related to my research and especially my fundamental research, which was based on the biotic interaction of seaweeds and how they cope with different pests. And so that's what I really expect for this workshop is that we will have provided the opportunity for the community, which is linked to the development of the eukaryotes cultivation and uses for the future to talk together, and then also probably seed the ideas which will provide new projects for the sectors. And we will, of course, we collaborate with projects between all the stakeholders in the value chain of eukaryotes, seaweeds, and especially linking farmers with the scientists, but also with the processors, which are in fact probably key actors in the sector. And what I probably was willing to push 20 years ago was to involve much more the processor. At that time, they were mainly big processors which were located in Europe or in the States. But now we have different pictures. We have also a lot of processors which are Southeast Asia, but also in China. But there is a big responsibility for the processors and the industry, which is really trading the different tropical seaweeds for really supporting the sector and invest much more than they have done in the past in the key issues for the sectors. So the key issues are really to provide farmers with a security of seeding, with solving their daily problems, and that will not be possible without investment in organizations in different countries. So I'm very pleased to see all the developments which were done in the different Southeast Asian countries, but also in Africa, to better organize the sector and to really invest in the potential of developing some safe solution for producing the seedlings, for considering that the genetic improvement is one very important issue for the future, because without enlarging the genetic diversity of the potential of eukaryotes in the future, we will not solve the long-term issues, and we will never end it with the problem. So all these aspects are important. And what also is important is to see the emergence of new type of industries in Southeast Asia, which are really willing to develop the potential of biorefining for the tropical red seaweeds. And I'm sure that also by providing additional value to the biomass which is produced in Southeast Asia, we will also provide the potential for growing, for make the industry grow. But of course, as now the scientific leader with Vincent Dumézel of the Safe Seaweed Coalition, I just is willing to stress that to develop the sector, we will need more cooperation, and we have to really cooperate around the safety issues for the consumers. We have to produce, of course, which will be safe for the consumers, and which will in the future provide new food for the food system, but also to do that in a very large environmental safety. And I'm sure that other colleagues will stress that also in the next coming questions. And of course, I'm considering that the most important person in the sectors are the workers of the sector. So we need to develop a safe system for the workers. And I'm sure that this idea will be could be shared by all the stakeholders, and all of us will agree that we have to be safer for the development in industry in the future.
Okay, thank you, Professor Philip. Thank you very much for Ideal G and Genial G. Yeah, I hope that I pronounce correctly. Yeah, Ideal G and Genial G for making this meeting possible. As you know that we have 40 presentation and more than 500 registrants, so it is huge participant. Yeah, so we hope that the outcome of the workshop will be very productive. Yeah, and also the way to establish the partnership later on. Okay, thank you again, Professor Philip. Now I will move to so maybe I think this is the last speaker that we want to ask, Professor Elizabeth Cotter-Colt. Yeah, hello, Professor Elizabeth. Yeah.
Hello there. Hi.
Yeah. Okay. We want to know the interesting thing about the global seaweed star. Yeah. So this is building a progressive management pathway for the seaweed biosecurity. So there are two questions that need to be respond. One of them is so this is from Alan. What happened after the funding finish? What are the major part of the global seaweed star legacy?
Sorry, could you repeat the first part of the question, please?
Okay, sure, yeah. What happened after the funding finish? What are the after the funding finish? Yeah. What are the major part of the global seaweed star legacy? Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Clear,
I'd just like to start by thanking everyone and thanking the organizers for inviting me to come along and speak to you all here. I'm currently speaking from the beautiful Isle of Man off the west coast of Wales, but thank you to everyone who's invited me. So yes, so Global Seaweed Star is a 4-year program funded by the UK Research and Innovation Fund. And it's due to come to an end this December. Now, the plan is that we look for further funding, and we did actually apply to the European Union to one of their funding calls, with which actually allowed partners from Southeast Asia, it allowed international partners to take part. So that was submitted in January, and that was going to be a 17 million euro program. But unfortunately, we found out recently that that wasn't going ahead. It would have included a number of people who are here in this meeting, and part of the Safe Seaweed Coalition as well. So that was a real shame. Unfortunately, due to the COVID pandemic, funding has become a lot tighter across the world, as everyone realizes. So there is obviously other funding opportunities that are going to become available, such as the Safe Seaweed Coalition. And obviously I'm on the steering panel for that coalition. And I've been hosting, I've already hosted one stakeholder sort of round table on environmental standards and biosecurity standards. So hopefully there will be further funding for the Global Seaweed Star Partnership or partners within that to go and acquire sort of further funding from the Safe Seaweed Coalition. But there are other funding opportunities, and I'm hoping that next year, I'm not sure whether you're aware, but the UK government actually cut its overseas aid budget this year, but there's been a lot of us lobbying very hard for that to be returned to the level that it was before the cut. And hopefully there will be more types of funding through UK research and innovation that will allow us to work with countries in Southeast Asia again. So I certainly have many ideas. I still have ideas, and hopefully I'll be able to recycle the European proposal, which was looking at upscaling seaweed cultivation to try to look at how it can increase biodiversity, restore degraded environments, but also obviously provide economic benefits for the seaweed farmers themselves. So there are other opportunities to continue on, and I'm sure there will be many of us from the Seaweed Star group I know a number of us are now in the Safe Seaweed Coalition, so we will still be together. And, you know, in terms of the legacy, Alan, this is a great question, thank you. In terms of the legacy for Global Seaweed Star, well, obviously there is the legacy of, I mean, we've already published 17 scientific publications, and there's going to be probably another 30 at least come out from the program. So that's a legacy in itself. But we've also really raised the profile of biosecurity, particularly within national governments. A lot of people didn't really understand what that meant, but we have raised the profile of that to the extent that, thankfully, you know, and it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm working with Melba Renazzo at the FAO in the aquaculture department to develop this progressive management pathway for the seaweed aquaculture industry. And I'm hoping that a policy document will be written, an international policy brief will be written by the end of this year, which hopefully will then be a physical piece of paper that policymakers can take to their ministers in every country growing seaweed and sort of say, look, these are the key recommendations, and this is what we should be following to make sure that our seaweed industry has the best possible chance of succeeding. So there are hopefully going to be many, many more legacies and many more impacts that we haven't even really thought about yet. But those are the key ones anyway. Hopefully that answered your question, okay?
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth, yeah, for the information. Yeah, there is one more question, yeah. So this question also comes from Dr. Alan. So he said that you have built an incredible network of scientists, phyconomists, yeah, and undertaken considerable training of the next gen phyconomists. These people are now based in some of the major centers of seaweed production. How can that talent be used to help countries that we are not in the first phase of funding?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Alan, for saying that. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I mean, it was really a fantastic opportunity, actually, because part of the £6 million that we got from UKRI, nearly 1 million was put aside to allow us. It was we created this Global Seaweed Star Research Fund, and we also had a travel fund. Hopefully some of you benefited from that. So it allowed us to basically fund 15 additional projects in seaweed producing developing countries in other parts of the world, other than our core partners, which I should have said were Tanzania, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So we've worked with many other researchers in different countries around the world as well, and also helped you know, over, I think, 100 researchers now through the travel fund get to various different conferences. So yes, we have built up this incredible network, which is wonderful to see. And I'm hoping that, well, and we're very much encouraging all of those researchers to join with the Safe Seaweed Coalition, because they really see that as the next sort of grouping, lobbying group, as it were, that we can all work together and collaborate with. So I'm hoping that many, you know, and really urging many of our partners to join with that coalition. And of course, you know, keep in touch through the Global Seaweed Star website and email address, so we can try to identify funding opportunities where we can work together. And I think, you know, I'm really looking at other new forms of funding. So a couple of years ago, I applied for the MacArthur Foundation. So other sort of maybe US-based philanthropic funding organizations that could maybe be used to provide to fund another Global Seaweed Star type coalition. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Elizabeth, for providing us information more about Global Seaweed Star. Yeah, thank you. So now, yeah, you're welcome. Now I move to Dr. Nana. So maybe we have a question in the Q&A box. So please raise the question. So time is yours, Dr. Nana, please.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Mahatma. Actually, we have a question for Professor Jena Angadireja. Unfortunately, he's sick from COVID, so wish him best a speedy recovery. The question is about the question is, at current cost of production, is it reasonable or feasible or economic to grow seaweeds to use for biofuel and or sink the abyss for carbon capture? And we invite anyone among the speakers who want to answer that question. Maybe we can begin. Who wants to volunteer?
I will.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's Ian. Well, I've known Yana since what, 1988. So you'll have to excuse me for answering. I think, Nelson addressed the issue. Before it is remotely feasible to use seaweed as a raw material for biofuel production, we need to find a way to get the cost of seaweed production in massive quantities down to a level that is about, let's say, 1/3 or less of what it is now. And at that level, it still has to be profitable for the farmers. This is, Nick, I see you there. What do you think? I mean, do you agree with that?
You want to get me started about biofuels, Ian? So,
well, yeah, go ahead.
After you've taken the protein, taken the fatty acids, taken every last possible thing, if there's a tiny little bit of carbon left over and you think you can make some biogas from that, go ahead. But it's a long way before that will happen. So
yeah,
and of course carbon capture is the next level down from that. So
yeah, and the other thing that came up earlier was that the business of growing seaweed and then sinking it to 2 kilometers down to sequester carbon. And the question is, while you're sequestering the carbon, what else are you sequestering? You grow seaweed that is very valuable. It's absorbing CO2, but it's also mining all of many other elements from the seawater. And then you sink the whole thing to the bottom of the sea. How does that even remotely make sense? I mean, it makes biofuels look like a great idea. Simon?
Anyone wants to comment on that? Nelson?
I would say there's another way for carbon sequestration, and it's a bit indirect, but through biostimulants alone. What we found, I mean, we also make biostimulants, and what we found that, hey, if you grow seaweeds and you measure the amount of carbon captured in seaweed alone, versus if I take the same seaweed and I make it a biostimulant, and then I spray it on virtually any crop, because the amount of the amount of seaweed which maps onto an area is so huge. Even if you get a 5% increase in productivity, that's a massive amount of carbon which gets captured. And why I say that is most farmers only look at productivity in terms of the crop you get. Like if I'm growing corn, then I measure the amount of corn I get. Nobody bothers measuring the increase in the plant mass, the increase in the root mass, which is all really the carbon capture. So I think until really we can get the cost of biomass really low, biostimulants and putting the biostimulants on crops to me is a great way to sequester carbon in a completely organic manner with no chemicals.
Yeah, I mean, people keep talking about growing these massive amounts of seaweed over the ocean. What you have to understand is that all seawater is not created equal. The distribution of nutrients is very unequal. If people look at seawater and all water looks the same, but seaweeds have been, macrophytes have been around for 1.2 billion years, fine-tuning their capacity to uptake all kinds of elements from the seawater and translate it into growth. To me, that is the big mystery that we have to solve, is how to deal with the nutrient distribution situation.
Thank you, Dr.
And
Ding.
of course, biosecurity enters into that whole thing. I think I'm still trying to understand what biosecurity means and how we explain it to seaweed farmers in Southeast Asia, but I'm working on it. And your paper was thank you for that. It explains a lot, but I'll be getting back to you with some questions if you don't mind.
Well,
okay.
And I'd like to add one thing here.
Yes,
that's
Malcolm.
Talking about large farms. Today, all of seaweed farming is really seaweed farming on the surface. So we're extracting the nutrients which are coming in. There's no input really. But as we grow in scale, and there's a lot of R&D needed for this, these are just in concepts. There are ways in which these nutrients could come in to actually boost seaweed growth. One, I think Brian has mentioned, you could use natural upwelling, where there's a lot of nutrients below the sea surface, which could which could actually increase the growth. And what Nick pointed out, extracting all forms of carbon out and what's left going into byproducts. What I say is, if you focus only on the carbon, what's happening to all the nitrogen and all the salts which are present in the seaweed? So as you grow in scale and you start utilizing the carbon more and more, what we may find out is we could actually use those byproducts, these elements present in those byproducts, to fertilize the fields. Now, here is, these are really great concepts to talk about. There's a lot of work to go in before these actually happen. And yeah, maybe I'm sure a lot of collaborations would probably lead the way there.
Thank you, Nelson. Professor Philip and Professor Elizabeth, do you want to say something? Comment on this one?
Yeah, I was willing to comment that, of course, we have to be, as we were discussing previously about the difference between micropropagation and tissue culture. We have to be very cautious with the wording about carbon sequestration. So seaweeds are indeed storing carbon. So and they are very efficient to store carbon when they grow, but they are also releasing a lot of carbon during their growth. There's a life, and so that means we have to consider that also this carbon will be recycled in the systems, and we need to really be cautious about that. And then in terms of sequestration, we will start to sequester carbon if we are intelligently using seaweed. So of course, using seaweeds as we do with other biomass in material which could be kept on the long term, and which will provide the potential for new materials. We will save also oil-based products, but also the potential to develop the sectors which are at the moment very impacting in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, such as in agriculture. So of course, it was already discussed about fertilization, and also the potential to mitigate and to get protection of crops using seaweed products. So that means in that term we will be efficient in a long term to solve a part of the carbon issue at the moment. So, but seaweed will not will not be the sole solution to solve the carbon sequestration problem on Earth. And we have just to contribute and to provide demonstrations that it is part of the solution. So that's very important. And if it helps to support the development of the sector, we have to, of course, to encourage that. And we will consider all the projects will be reasonable in terms of improving this in the future. And that's what I was willing to stress at the moment, because we need to stay science-based. In fact, because we are simplifying too much the system. So as it was already demonstrated by Ian, so in terms of nutrients, of course, seaweed could not be grown everywhere. Even if we have the best engineering for restoring the upwelling, I'm not sure we will be able to put seaweed everywhere. But we will be able to develop the cultivation, and that this cultivation will provide new services for mitigating some of the decline in many oceans. So that's the solution for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Potang. Unfortunately, we already reached the end of this session, and thank you, Dr. Mahatma, for facilitating this session. Let me close this session. So, how do we move forward? Global collaboration and partnerships are a necessity to find solutions to the complex global challenges we all face. And this is a kind of consensus among all the speakers upon hearing this 2 days workshop, as well as the online presentations. And it has to be done in such a way that is ensuring sustainability. And among the many issues and challenges in seaweed business, where do we begin? How can we tap on limited resources we have for the greater benefit to mankind and the health of our planet? Surely this is just the beginning of this kind of partnership, and we hope to see many, many more exciting forums like this and many more collaborations to come in the future, capitalizing the different strengths we all have and we have seen throughout this 2 days workshop for stronger coalition in seaweed business. So it is the emphasis on collaboration and cooperation rather than competition. And we certainly encourage all our audience here to join the Safe Seaweed Coalition as well, to be part of exciting revolutionary journey. The complex global challenges we face needs concerted global efforts, and it is framed in SDGs as our common goals, as emphasized particularly by Dr. Vincent Demezo. So how can we feed the increasing number of world population from the sea? How can we feed the increasing number how can we find materials that are environmentally friendly? How do we balance between the needs for economy and the health of the ecosystem? These are among all the key questions whose answers require global effort. In doing so, we leave no one behind, because after all, we live in a connected world, in a connected sea. So let's connect our science, let's connect our research, let's widen our partnership beyond our national borders, stronger together and more resilient in facing uncertainties the future may offer. So ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, with this session 4, the very last question of the Tropical Phyconomy Coalition development is concluded. Thank you very much for all your participation, commitment you made working at odd hours due to the time zone difference. So thank you to all our sponsors as well, Geni Alf and IDEAF and the Universitas Hasanuddin for hosting this event, and hope to see you again soon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and good day.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the excellent speaker. Thank you for the distinguished participant. Thank you, Dr. Nana.
Thank you, Pak Mahatma.
Thank you, everyone.
Right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a great honor for us to host so many seaweed experts and such a wide seaweed constituency from around the world. I would also like to thank all the team here and abroad who have contributed so much to making this event happen. On behalf of the Universitas Hasanuddin Executive Committee, I would like to thank you all for your valued contributions to this lively workshop. Please remember that the forum is live for continuing interactions and that there is still time to get your certificate by posing a question on the forum by 15th of July. I now pass the screen to Professor Jamaluddin Jompa, the UNHAS TPCD1 Chair and Dean of the Graduate School, to make some final remarks. Over to you, Prof. Jamal.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you. I hope everyone else can.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks again for everybody. Finally, this is the time to bring closer to our very intensive 2 days of meetings. I have problem with, but I hope this is also not the end, but the beginning of our opening of a new era of research. Hold a second. We have
is this better?
I could hear.
Is this better?
Can you hear? Oh no, I can't. Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Hello.
Maybe you better come and sit at this laptop and talk if you have a problem with that one.
Okay.
It was really clear to begin with.
Yes.
Maybe Andy, can you put off
Perfect.
your
Please continue.
speakers? Hello?
Yeah,
We
he's
can hear you,
coming
Prof.
through
JJ.
fine. I can hear him.
Okay, so let me just repeat again that I do hope this is the beginning of our opening of a new era of research and collaboration among us. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Gotcha.
Yes, all of us on the ecomatoids coming together to address all of the issues that we have heard so well presented in this 2 days of workshop. Of course, our thanks go to the presenters who gave us so willingly of their time and talents. Without you guys, this workshop would not have been possible. Your works remain online. I watched many of them, almost all of them, and we encourage continued chat in the Tropical Phyconomy Coalition Development Forum. Thank you also to all the enthusiastic audience. You guys great. The future lies in your hands. Please grasp these opportunities. Please feel free to reach out the panelists and the Center of Excellence, which are dedicated to ongoing research and tropical seaweed and phyconomic solution to improve coastal environment and location. Sorry for my voice. Thanks goes to also UNHAS moderator, facilitators in the last 2 days. Let me just call by their nicknames: Pak Rijal, Mbak Dila, Bu Arti, Bu Elmi, Pak Sudi, Bu Inaya, Bu Nana, and Pak Mahatma for your skillful fielding question and keeping us on time. I know it was challenging, especially in this, sometimes we have hiccup technology, which is also understandable. You guys did excellent job. Thanks again. I also would like to thank all the people behind the scene, operators. These webinars do not happen by themselves, and we know this technology Zoom need a lot of skill adjustment. In particular, many people in the front, but also behind the scene, including Abigail, Widya, Amanda, Ihsan, Iqbal, Mukhlis, Tamin, and so on. Also the volunteers of Nelson Farisari and also R.A. Narayanan from the C6 Energy. We also thank Director of UNHAS and Graduate School of UNHAS for the facilities, and also MARSEF for being the umbrella of organization for this meeting. MARSEF is under the Faculty of Marine Science and Fisheries of UNHAS. Our special and sincere thanks, especially to our sponsors of this workshop, which are ADLG and GNLG, as administered by Dr. Philip Potin, to the station of Balikyo Roscoff, France. We could not have done this without your support. Please continue to collaborate with us for the much more needed research and effort, as well as please continue support this excellent platform. This is a very inspiring name, by the way, TPCD, Tropical Phyconomy Coalition Development. I like the name. Our special thanks also again to TPCD1 initiators, Dr. Ianis, Dr. Alan Critley, and also Dr. Nelson Palaseri and Abigail. I know many of this meeting I attended. We need to be adapting the time zone to discuss all of the preparation the last a few months. I also have been asked to remind all presenters they will be being contacted for possible submission of chapter for volume 2 of the tropical seaweed farming Phyconomy by the team of Hurtado, Neis, and Critley. And I think in the very soon you will be contacted. Finally, we come to the end of the TPCD1. It just remains for me to state that the ecomatoids are only part of the growing family of cultivated tropical seaweed. Here in the Coral Triangle, as you know, we are all placed to produce seaweeds for the world. And there are many more seaweed groups, as we all know, Gracilaria, Sargassum, Colerva, Ulva, and so on, requiring the same type of attention as the euchomatoids in order to fulfill their greatest potential to provide goods and services. There will be forthcoming workshop dealing with this seaweed. So guys, please watch this space and be willing to participate in the next workshop. I do hope the next workshop will be more participant, more enthusiastic, and I think we need to be moving on from this pandemic. Indonesia now has faced again the third wave, so but we need to be enthusiastic in finding solution for the world. I hope you all stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you again in the not too long distance which are in this channel. Again, thank you for and all, and I formally declare this workshop closed. Terima kasih. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And take care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jamaluddin Jumper, for those inspiring words. We now wish to leave you with a taste of South Sulawesi, even though you can't come here. Once again, we will share with you this time a traditional Buginese song, which is called Marincong. It is performed by the Hasanuddin University Social and Political Science Student Choir, the DB3 Voice. This performance won the gold medal in the folklore category at the 3rd World Choir Festival in 2021. Stay safe, healthy, au revoir, and sampai jumpa.
Sama-sama.
Thank you.
Hare